So let's proceed with our topic. First part is about thrombosis and its laboratory assessment. So our outline for today, we will discuss first thrombosis and its predisposition, condition called thrombophilia, embolism, and different kinds of thrombosis as classified as congenital versus acquired, and uh, how we will approach to diagnosis using different types of laboratory assessment. Definition of terms. First, thrombosis. This is the inappropriate formation of platelet and fibrin clots. Ano ba yung mga criteria para masabi natin na may thrombosis yung tao? So first, kailangan may inappropriate formation. Ibig sabihin, kahit hindi kailangan, no, nagpo-form ng blood clots yung katawan ng tao. Maybe due to number one, madami kang pro-clotting mechanism or proteins, or number two, very sensitive yung receptors or walang resistance kumbaga dun sa formation of the blood clots. And lastly, mahina yung process of fibrinolysis. Hindi nagtutunaw or naglalyze ng fibrin clots. So, naiipon sila. Okay? And then, second terminology is thrombophilia, or in other books, mababasa nyo to as hypercoagulability. And this is not the final diagnosis, okay? This is just a manifestation ng mga pasyente na may mataas na predisposition or risk factor for thrombosis. Okay? Next term is embolus. Ano naman ang difference ng thrombus and embolus? Embolus is actually a thrombus na umalis or natanggal from its original place. Okay? Na nagtatravel across the blood vessel. Pero, itong mga type of thrombus na to is very fatal or dangerous to the patient, especially kapag nag-travel sila to your heart, lungs, or brain. Pag sa puso nag-travel, pwedeng mag-heart attack. Sa lungs nag-travel, pwedeng tinatawag natin pulmonary embolism causing difficulty of breathing. Eventually, no, dun sa it will cause eventually fatality to the patient. Then lastly, sa brain, pwede kang magka-stroke. Okay, pathophysiology naman tayo. Intindihan natin mabuti, no? Kung ano yung mga process that would lead to thrombosis. So, first, dito tayo sa pataas tayo, okay? Either one of each processes, no? Pwedeng mataas yung levels mo ng mga procoagulant proteins, okay? Then next, pwedeng mababa naman yung levels mo ng anticoagulants which will inhibit the clotting process para wala kang mabuo na blood clot. Next, pwedeng mataas ang antifibrinolytic proteins which inhibits the lysis of blood clot. And next, and lastly, low ang levels mo ng profibrinolytics. And this each one of the risk factors can cause thrombophilia and eventually thrombosis. Okay. So, differential with abnormal bleeding, no? Baliktad ang process. So, sa thrombus, balik tayo dito. So, our first topic is antithrombin deficiency. As a recall, ang antithrombin inhibits your thrombin from the name itself. And in addition to that, no, not only thrombin, it also inhibits your factor 9A, factor 10A, and contact group. Bakit may A? Ibig sabihin, activated factor 9, activated 10, factor 10. Okay? Ang AT deficiency is generally congenital, no? But can be acquired in what events or condition. So first, discuss natin yung liver disease. Liver disease, bakit siya involved sa AT deficiency? Because antithrombin is a protein, no? So basically lahat ng proteins, 'di ba, na produce sa liver. So kapag sira ang liver, walang napoproduce na antithrombin. Second condition is nephrotic syndrome. Kailangan nephrotic kasi in nephrotic syndrome lang merong proteinuria. Lumalabas lahat ng proteins mo sa urine. Sa nephritic syndrome, walang proteinuria. So, tandaan nyo yan back in your AUBF, no? Yung difference between your nephritic and nephrotic. Next, your prolonged heparin therapy. Dito naman, meron tayong overusage of your antithrombin. Kasi ang heparin, ina-activate niya yung antithrombin para gumalaw or maging active. Kung madami kang heparin, madami kang nagagamit na or na-activate na antithrombin, nauubos din sila. Okay? And lastly, your DIC na implicated with increased circulating thrombin. Pag mataas ang levels mo ng thrombin sa katawan, yung antithrombin ngayon gagalaw to inhibit your thrombin. No? Mas madaming thrombin, mas madami kang nagagamit na antithrombin, nauubos yung AT levels mo. Okay, classification naman tayo. There are two types, no? Simple lang, type 1, type 2. Pero ano ang difference ng dalawa? Ang type 1, quantitative. Ibig sabihin, yung number or the levels of your AT ang may problema. Sa type 2 naman, normal naman yung levels mo ng AT. Pero, walang silbi or non-functional. Hindi naman pwedeng gamitin. Okay? And then, for assessment, Pwede kang gumamit ng AT activity assay, which can be used for both type 1 and type 2. Parang screening lang, no? Kung mataas ang suspicion mo for AT deficiency, pwede mong gamitin to. And kung curious ka, you can differentiate the type 1 and type 2 using AT antigen level. I-discuss natin to sa next few slides. Okay, dito muna tayo sa AT activity assay. Sabi nga natin, no, ito ay hindi specific. Pwede tayo maka-diagnose ng type 1 and type 2 AT deficiency. So, ano ba nangyayari in AT activity assay? So, first, gagamit tayo nga ng reagents such as yung heparin and yung excess factor 10A. Diba, kanina sinasabi natin na it can bind not only to thrombin but also to factors 9A, 10A, and contact group. And meron tayong substrate na ang end color is yellow product. So, tingnan natin yung whole process muna. Okay, meron kang 80 sa katawan, right? Tapos, ang ilalagay mo is first ang heparin to bind with antithrombin. Okay? And then, maglalagay ka na ng next reagent which is your factor 10A para mag-bind din ulit kay antithrombin. Creating this complex, your AT, heparin, and factor 10A. And then, yung mga hindi nakapag-bind the factor 10A, ay may mga excess yan, no? Hindi naman lahat makakabag-bind sa 80 levels ng pasyente. Ito yung magbabind sa substrate or dun sa yellow reagent. And sabi natin, the more intense yung color ng final product, lesser yung levels ng 80. Okay? The lesser the yellow intensity, more ang 80. Okay? Yun lang naman ang papamemorize ko sa inyo, no? How to interpret. Hindi naman yung first step hanggang sa last step. So, tingnan natin naman kung walang AT at all ang pasyente. So, kung walang mababind ng heparin, no? Libre lahat ang mga factor 10A. The more factor 10A na makakapag-bind kay yellow substrate, the more intensity ng color. Thus, yun nga, more yellow product means less AT levels. Kung na-appreciate niyan. Pero, syempre, practical lang tayo. Aralin nyo na lang yung paano mag-interpret. Okay, next test is AT antigen levels, which can differentiate your type 1 and type 2. Dito naman, spectrophotometry tayo, no? It will measure the wavelength of light emission. Okay? So, ang sabi daw nila is that light emission is directly proportional. Unlike yung kanina, di ba? Inversely proportional do sa AT activity test. Dito sa AT antigen levels, directly proportional. The more light, more levels of AT. The lesser light, lesser AT levels. Okay, balikan natin. Type 1 again. Kapag type 1, deficiency in levels. Type 2, okay ang levels mo pero non-functional. So, sino dito ang may normal result? Si type 2. Ang type 1, dahil less ang AT levels, less din ang light emission. Dito tayo kay activated protein C problem, so APC. APC, recall natin, no? Babalikan din naman natin yan mamaya. APC inhibits your 5A and factor 8A. Katulong niya yung cofactors protein S and activator thrombin thrombomodulin. The problems you encounter with APC are, number 1, protein C deficiency. Levels ang problema mo dito. Then, APC resistance or factor 5 laden mutation. Ang problem mo naman is yung receptor, no? Tama lang yung levels mo ng APC, pero yung receptor mo, yung tatanggap dun sa protein C, wala or may defect. And then APC resistance is also known as factor 5 laden mutation. Dito, normally, glutamine ang meron sa mga activated protein C amino acid. Pero napapalitan yung glutamine content nito ng arginine. And this is the problem. Ito kasing arginine would resist the levels or yung action ng activated protein C. So, hindi siya makakapag-inhibit ng mga kailangan niyang i-inhibit. Okay? And then, for the assessment, first, for the screening test lang muna, APC resistance clot-based assay, and for confirmatory, factor 5 latent mutation assay. Dito tayo sa clot-based assay muna. Ang reagents na pwede natin gamitin, yung pang PTT reagent or the partial thromboplastin time reagent, factor 5 depleted plasma, and calcium chloride. The result would usually, in a normal patient, more than 1:8 ratio. Okay? Kapag may APCR, less than 1:8 ratio of normal to patient na clot-based assay time. So, discuss natin yung process kung paano ginagawa itong clot-based assay. So, let's proceed with the processes involved in APCR clot-based protein. So, first, combine natin yung PTT reagent and factor 5 depleted plasma plus your patient plasma. And then, you will prepare 2 test tubes. Test tube 1, mag-add ka lang ng calcium chloride. Sa test tube 2, mag-add ka ng calcium chloride plus APC. Pero anong principle ng dalawang test tube na to? Okay? Doon tayo sa test tube 1. Diba? Ang nilagay lang natin is calcium chloride. sa normal patient, no, there will be a coagulation kasi inactivate ni calcium chloride. And eventually, may inhibit ng APC na laman ng patient plasma. Okay? So, tawag dito, nagkakaroon ng normal PTT results which is 27 seconds or less. Dito naman tayo, normal na patient. Sa test tube 2, mag-a-add tayo ng calcium chloride and APC. Ibig sabihin sa test tube 2, more APC means more inhibition of coagulation. Thus, prolong ang time ng PTT up to more than 49 seconds. Okay, ano ang difference naman ng abnormal na patient or may mutation na patient? Natin. So, M is yung mutation. Kapag sa test tube 1, no, may mutation ng APC or meron kang resistance against APC, there will be coagulation and cannot be inhibited by the APC levels inside the patient plasma. And then, ang litaw mo dyan, ang PTT mo is still 27 seconds kasi merong coagulation. Kapag sa test tube 2 naman, due to resistance, there is still no inhibition. Okay? So, mangyayari pa rin, magkakaroon ka pa rin ng clotting process at coagulation. Thus, your PTT is less than 49 seconds. Okay? Pero, doktora, sobrang haba nung explanation ng process, di ba? Tatandaan lang natin at the end of the day, paano mag-i-interpret ng ratio. Okay? Sabi nga natin, no, ang normal na pasyente would show a more than 1:8 ratio of the two test tubes. Okay? Ang APCR less than 1:8 ratio ng dalawang test tube. Ito lang naman ang importante. Next, your deficiencies of protein C and protein S can be congenital or acquired. Kapag congenital, nakikita sila in neonatal purpura fulminans. Ibig sabihin, pagkalabas pa lang ni baby, prone na siya into formation of your purpura. And madalas, fulminant. Ibig sabihin, makikita mo sila from head to toe. Acquired cause naman is prolonged warfarin therapy. Okay, tatandaan natin kanina, prolonged heparin therapy, anong deficiency? Your antithrombin. Ang prolonged warfarin therapy, protein C and protein S deficiency. Dahil protein C and protein S are vitamin K dependent. Si warfarin, galit siya kay vitamin K. Kapag na inhibit niya to, wala ng production of your protein C and protein S. So, ito yung itsura ng neonatal purpura fulminans. Okay? Sabi nga natin, no, mga newborns ang may high risk dito, and ang purpura can be seen from head to toe. Dito, madalas, magsususpect ka na baka mayroong deficiencies of protein C and protein S. Okay, next, laboratory assessment, no? Magkaiba sila, no? Tingnan natin yung protein C muna. Protein C assessment is done using PROTAC reagent. PROTAC reagent contains Agkistrodon contortrix venum. So, memorize yan usually. Okay? And ang result, pag ang pasyente ay may deficiency in protein C, no or lesser ang intensity of the yellow product. Merong tayong substrate na ginagamit in PROTAC. And ang end color niya is yellow. Kapag in this assay, directly proportional tayo dito. Okay? Pag no and lesser yellow intensity means lesser levels of your protein C. Sa protein S naman, ang ginagamit na reagent is activated protein C plus Russell Viper venom. Kasi ang protein C, kung maalala nyo back in midterms, ginagamit siya or cofactor siya ni protein C. So it cannot do its own work without its partner na cofactor. And kapag ang result naman, clotting time ang check. No? Shortened clotting time kapag may proteins S deficiency ka. Meron tayong mga false positives. Okay? Take note lang natin no, na kapag may presence of lupus anticoagulant which reacts to any reagent containing snake venom. Ito mga to, snakes kasi itong mga to. Okay? And then, next, yung use of anticoagulant drugs such as your argatroban and dabigatran, which we will discuss this type of drugs later on. Take note muna natin sa ngayon. So, huwag tayong kalimutan na protein C, Agristrodon contortrix, ang protein S, Russell Viper venom plus APC. Next condition, homocystinemia. It's a genetic defect, no? In the metabolism of your methionine. Kapag may homocystinemia ka, ibig sabihin high levels ng homocysteine sa katawan. And then next, kapag mataas ang levels ng homocysteine, mataas din ang mga levels ng mga products nito such as your vitamin B complex which are your B6, B9, and B12. So, ano ang other name ni B6? Your pyridoxine. B9, your folic acid. And B12, your cobalamin. And in this condition, prone ang mga young adults to brain infarct or stroke. So, tinatawag natin stroke in the young adults. There is no established association between homocystinemia and thrombus formation. No? Ang theory pa rin dyan ng mga scientists is that meron daw damage to endothelium due to increased levels of your homocysteine. Okay. Next naman, APAS. APAS stands for Antiphospholipid Antibody Syndrome. This is not the primary disease. Kapag meron ganito yung pasyente mo, you have to investigate further. Dahil ito lang ay secondary to or a consequence to another autoimmune disease. So, mag-i-investigate ka pa. Okay? And the antibodies is complex, no? Madami palang makikita in APA, such as your number 1, your lupus anticoagulant, which is magiging prone ka sa thrombus formation, anti-cardiolipin antibodies, and anti-beta-2 glycoprotein 1 antibodies as well. Okay, sabi nga natin, di ba, secondary to another disease siya. So, you have to suspect if number 1, meron ang APAS, you have to suspect kung na may APAS ang pasyente if number 1, meron siyang unexplained thrombosis. No? Thrombus former siya kahit wala namang mga damage or hindi siya nag-undergo ng mga surgery or damage to any blood vessels and still madami siyang blood clot, mag-suspect ka ng APAS. Next, thrombocytopenia. Thrombus former ka, pero yung platelets mo bagsak naman. Okay? So, magtataka ka, baka may mga extra protein siya na nakakapag-form ng thrombus. And lastly, kapag babae naman, no, ang manifestation dyan, meron silang recurrent fetal loss. Paulit-ulit na merong abortion sa pasyente. Dahil ang akala dito sa syndrome na to, no, ang akala niya abnormal protein ang ang bata, ang fetus, so magpuproduce siya ng mga antibodies against dun sa forming fetus. So, magkakaroon ng recurrent or paulit-ulit na fetal loss. So, sa mga assessment naman, you can use substitution studies. No? You rule out muna any clotting factor deficiency. And then, mixing studies, aaralin natin yan mamaya, and parallel assays. Na-discuss natin later on. Okay. Dito tayo sa substitution studies. In APAS, normally, or ang expected result mo is that dapat walang correction for all prepared reagents such as your aged serum, fresh serum, aged plasma, fresh plasma, and adsorbed plasma. Diba, itong mga to, ginagamit sila kapag may clotting deficiency. Pero in APAS, wala ka naman talagang clotting deficiency. Kaya, not corrected kahit maglagay ka ng pang-correct na reagent. Prolong pa rin yung iyong clotting time. Iwan ko muna yung substitution studies, no? Di ba na-discuss naman natin yan back in midterm. Proceed tayo with mixing studies naman. And of course, i-discuss natin ulit yan in SEM 2, part 2 ng HIMA. No, i-discuss natin yan lahat. Babalikan natin yan lahat. Mixing studies naman tayo. So, anong ginagawa in mixing studies? Sobrang haba na itong process. Mas maganda kasi i-discuss natin para magets nyo rin kung bakit ganito yung interpretation ng result. Okay? In PTT, partial thromboplastin time, if prolonged, okay, you can proceed to mixing studies. So sa first muna tayo, okay? Kapag PTT ay prolonged, you can proceed with thrombin time. Okay? Kapag ang thrombin time mo ulit ay prolonged, maglagay ka ng extra reagents such as your HepZyme. HepZyme means, ang tawag dito, it will bind to heparin present in the patient plasma. Okay? Kasi ang heparin can prolong both PTT and your thrombin time. So, i-rule out mo, baka naman may heparin, madami siyang heparin or may prolonged heparin therapy. So, gamit kang HepZyme. So, i-repeat mo ulit ang PTT mo. Kapag nag-normal, ibig sabihin, ang may kasalanan nga doon sa bleeding condition is heparin. So, heparin overdose ang final diagnosis mo. Okay? Pwede kang mag-assay for heparin pero still maganda na tong parameter to diagnose heparin overdose. Okay? Kapag naman yung thrombin time mo is normal, okay? Pwede ka mag-proceed to another test. You mix ang tawag dito, plasma with normal plasma. Yung patient plasma mo, i-mix mo with normal plasma. And then, kapag ang result is uncorrected, hindi na correct ng normal plasma, ibig sabihin, mataas ang chance na meron siyang lupus anticoagulant, which is one of the antibodies of your APAS. So, kapag APAS, PTT is prolonged, thrombin time is normal, pero kapag na-mix na siya with normal patient plasma, uncorrected pa rin ang PTT or prolonged pa rin ang PTT. Okay? APAS yan. Next, if in case nag-mix ka ng normal plasma, na-correct siya, okay, you proceed to next test. You mix a patient plasma and normal plasma and you will incubate it at 37 degrees Celsius for 1 to 2 hours. Repeat PTT ka. Kapag corrected na or normal na yung PTT, baka clotting factor deficiency. Okay? Next, kapag uncorrected pa rin yung PTT mo, baka merong specific factor inhibitor or anticoagulant or naka-anticoagulant therapy siya. Okay? Masyadong mahabang process, 'di ba? Medyo nakakawindang, pero still sa mga ganitong assessment, you have to memorize only the test results. Okay? Paano mag-interpret? Again, balikan natin, no? Kapag may heparin overdose, ang thrombin time is prolonged and corrected by using your Hepzyme. Ang lupus anticoagulant can be diagnosed kapag ang PTT mo is prolonged. PTT is not corrected after mixing of normal plasma. Okay? Clotting factor naman, PTT is prolonged. PTT is corrected after incubation with normal plasma. Okay? Anticoagulant excess naman kapag nag-undergo ka na anticoagulant therapy. PTT is prolonged. PTT is not corrected after incubation with normal plasma. Take note natin, baka magkalituhan with lupus anticoagulant. Dito, walang incubation. Ma-appreciate mo na yung prolonged PTT. Dito, kailangan pa ng incubation para ma-appreciate mo yung expected result. Okay? Next, your parallel assays. First, ano ba ibig sabihin ng parallel assay? Ibig sabihin, ito yung type of testing na gumagamit ng more than one or concurrently, sabay-sabay na test ito. You will use more than one test in parallel to each other. So, ano yung mga sub-tests under parallel assay? So, pwedeng diluted thromboplastin time or DTT, diluted Russell-Viper venom time or DRVVT, Cowlein's clotting time KCT, and simply your PTT. Okay? So, anong difference naman ng mga to? Bakit kailangan silang gawin concurrently? Okay? Or in parallel to each other? Ang DTT can activate your factor 7, which is a member of extrinsic pathway. DRVVT, doon naman siya sa common pathway. It activates your factor 10. KCT and PTT can both activate your factor 12. So, anong itsura ng parallel assay? Anong mga processes dyan? Again, your DTT can activate your extrinsic factor through factor 7, DRVVT sa common pathway sa factor 10A, and KCT and PTT sa 11. Factor 12A. Doon sa contact group in intrinsic pathway. So, lahat ng yan can proceed to the normal coagulation process. So, paano ito nakaka-diagnose ng APAS? Diba? Parehas kasi yung APAS sa mga problems with clotting factors. Okay? If ever normal ang result na itong parallel assay natin, ibig sabihin wala tayong problema with our clotting factors. Instead, meron tayong problema with regards to the autoantibodies. Pwedeng baka lupus anticoagulant. Okay, malignancies naman, ang pathophysiology behind the thrombus formation is that tumor production of tissue factor. Okay, kaya prone silang mag-pulmonary embolism, mga yan, stroke or heart attack. Pero more commonly, pulmonary embolism. Trousseau syndrome is actually a syndrome of thrombosis, which is specifically found sa mga may cancer sa pancreas and colon and other parts of your gastrointestinal tract. Okay. So, ito yung mga yan, no? Okay. So, ano mechanism behind thrombosis in this type of condition? There is ang theory is there is an established increased platelet number and activity. Very sensitive ang mga platelets, nagdidikit-dikit sila, no? Nag-adhere to each other, causing or producing blood clots. And then we have to take note as well, another type of leukemia na may mataas na predisposition to thrombus, yung M3 leukemia. Ano ibig sabihin ng M3 ulit? Your APML. APML stands for acute promyelocytic leukemia. And i-recall lang natin, no, sa M3 din, merong DIC lagi, no, or disseminated intravascular coagulopathy. So, bleeder din sila as well. And then, yung makikita natin under microscope, your phagot cells with our rods. Okay, next blood disorder is your paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria. Recall lang natin, ano meron ba sa PNH? There is a mutation called PIGA or PIGA mutation. Ang nangyayari with this type of mutation, it will cause deficiencies of your DAF protein or decay accelerating factor, which is found in the CD55. And your MRRL protein, which stands for membrane inhibitor of reactive lysis, which is found in CD59. Ang theory behind thrombus formation in PNH is that due to its mutation, no, there is a platelet hyperactivation. Very normal ang counts pero very active, and then therefore there is excessive levels of your blood clots. So sa HIT, or recently named as HITT, which stands for heparin-induced thrombocytopenia with thrombosis, nagkakaroon ng two processes na delikado, lalo sa mga patient with prolonged heparin therapy. Bagsak ang platelets, pero blood clot former ka. So, paano nangyari to? Okay? Bagsak ang platelets mo dahil sinisira ni heparin ang platelet factor 4, which stabilizes sana the platelets. So, kapag sira ang platelet factor 4, mababa or maikli ang lifespan ng platelets, madaling ma-destroy. Okay? Sa thrombosis naman, nagkakaroon ng heparin resistance. Okay? Ano bang ginagawa ng heparin? It usually activates your antithrombin to inhibit your thrombin. Thus, walang formation sana ng blood clot. Pero kung may heparin resistance ka, no, walang ganitong formation. Okay? Walang inhibition of blood clot formation. Pag-usapan naman natin yung mga types of heparin, which is will be discussed later on, no? Pahapyaw lang. So there are three types of heparin. First, your UFH, or unfractionated heparin, LMWH, or low molecular weight heparin, and lastly, the synthetic one or man-made is fondaparinux. So, ang difference niyan iba is the size. Lahat large except your low molecular weight heparin, which is the smallest. Lahat pwedeng mag-cause ng HIT except your fondaparinux. Lahat pwede mong i-monitor or kailangan i-monitor due to its side effects except your low molecular weight heparin and fondaparinux. No need for monitoring. In case of overdosage naman, no, lahat prone mag-overdose sa heparin except sa fondaparinux. Kapag naman naka-overdose ka ng heparin, losing of these two, ang gagamitin mong antidote is protamine sulfate. Okay? Next, assessment. We can screen for heparin-induced thrombocytopenia first, syempre by platelet count. and function tests such as your aggregometry. Okay? And for confirmatory and reference method, lagi yung mga fancy ang pangalan, no? Yung serotonin release assay. It's nice to know. Nasa book kasi, nasa RODAX. Okay, DIC naman tayo. Disseminated intravascular coagulopathy is also known as defibrillation syndrome or consumption coagulopathy. Defibrillation syndrome kasi madaling mag-lyse, no, ng fibrin clot or the fibrin, stable fibrin. Madaling matunaw. No? And then consumption coagulopathy, nauubos yung clotting factor mo dahil madami or disseminated yung blood vessel damage. And DIC is not the final diagnosis. Then, no, it is secondary to another problem. It is most commonly implicated in number 1, hemorrhagic viral syndrome such as your dengue. Ang isa sa mga kinakamatay ng mga dengue patient is DIC. Next, your gram-negative bacterial infection. Ano ba yung mga gram-negative natin? Yung mga E. coli, yung mga yan. Pregnancy, mga pregnant women, prone din magka-DIC. And lastly, your microangiopathic hemolytic anemia such as your TTP or thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura and HUS or your hemolytic uremic syndrome. So, ito yung mga yan. Okay. Pero hindi natin masyadong focus tong mga yon, okay? Mag-focus tayo dun sa assessment. So, sa screening muna, no, makikita nyo sa initial laboratory or initial routine laboratory test, the expected result of your platelet count is low in DIC dahil yun nga, madaming sirang blood vessels, kailangan gumalaw ni platelet to address the bleeding. So, madami kang magagamit na platelet, therefore, low ang platelet count mo. Second, madami kang schistocytes, no? Ito ay isang RBC malformation, no? And then, sa mga coagulation studies naman, lahat dapat ay prolong. Okay? PT and PTT. Kasi meron tayong coagulation or consumption coagulopathy. As confirmatory, again, fancy name dapat, no? Ganyan tayo pag nag-take tayo ng exam. Kapag nagtatanong ng confirmatory test, yung mga yan, tandaan natin lagi, no, may fancy name yan. So, D-dimer levels ang gamit with DIC. D-dimer levels is actually a product of fibrin degradation product, no? Ito yung isa sa mga final products of your fibrinolysis. Kung ongoing ang fibrinolysis, di ba nga ang other name nito is defibrillation syndrome. Ibig sabihin, ongoing ang fibrinolysis. Pag madami ang fibrinolysis product, such as your D-dimer, ibig sabihin, meron ka ngang DIC. Okay? And that's the last part of the first lecture about thrombosis and laboratory assessment.